Hello and welcome, everyone. We're absolutely thrilled to have you joining us from across the globe. Thank you for being here. Hopefully, you're all settled in, comfortable, and excited to join us on this virtual adventure to West Africa. I'm Harriet, the head of sales here at Explore, and I'll be your host for the next hour or so as we dive deeper into our West African tours. So, what's in store for today's event? Well, we'll start with a light speed introduction on who we are and what makes exploring with us so unforgettable, followed by a quick info on our Explore Foundation. Then I'll be joined by my colleagues, Anthony, and travel and outdoor journalist, Phoebe, who will guide us through these wonderful tours. After their presentations, we'll wrap things up with a live Q&A, an exclusive special offer, and a prize draw I promise you're not going to want to miss. Before we leap in, here are a few tips to help everything run smoothly today. Everyone is automatically on mute, but we'd love to get you involved using the chat or the Q&A features. In the chat, let us know which place is on top of your must-see list, if you're traveling with us before, or if you've been to any of the destinations already. We love hearing from you. If you have questions for us, pop them into the Q&A section. We've got a team of experts ready to answer as we go, and we'll save some great ones for the live Q&A session at the end. Should you need to step away for a moment, or if you miss anything, then don't worry. We're recording today's event. You'll get an email later this week with a link to the recording and a handy Q&A summary, and all the details about that special offer that I've just mentioned. Before we head out, a quick intro for those who might be new to Explore. Some of you may already know us well, but for anyone just discovering us, welcome. At Explore, we offer over 400 small group adventures across more than 100 incredible countries. From classic discovery tours and walking holidays to wildlife safaris, cycling trips, and unforgettable family expeditions. Our trips are designed for curious travelers seeking meaningful, immersive experiences in the world. We're also excited to introduce our newest collection, Explore Upgraded. It's everything you already love about an Explore adventure with an extra touch of comfort. Think upgraded stays, added ease, and a little more indulgent after a long day of exploration. So, what makes people fall in love with traveling with us? It's all about how we do things a little differently. On our trips, you won't just tick off the big name sites, you'll also uncover hidden gems that most travelers never even hear about. We believe in truly immersing and experiencing in a destination, not just observing it. That means meaningful moments, real connections, and spontaneous detours that can't be planned or replicated. Our incredible tour leaders are at the heart of what we do. With deep local knowledge and strong community ties, they unlock experiences you'd never find in a guidebook. Whether it's watching the sunset from a small boat in Greece, having dinner with a local family, or joining in a local celebration. And of course, they're there to make sure every detail runs smoothly from start to finish. Our small group size, just 11 people on average, strikes the perfect balance. You'll meet like-minded, curious travelers. Some of our brilliant Explore community have probably joined us tonight, and they'll be able to tell you about the great friendships they've made on our tours in the chat section. And being a small group also lets us dive deeper into the heart of the place without feeling like being part of a big crowd. Sustainability is at the core of everything we do. We only work with local partners who share our values, and we're committed to making a positive impact everywhere we go. Last but not least, we're proud to say our travelers notice the difference. We received FIFO's Platinum Trusted Service Award with customer ratings consistently over 4.5 out of 5. And we've just been voted for the Adventure Tour Operator of the Year by Wanderlust magazine. That's so exciting. Plus, we're B Corp, so we're a certified company joining a global community of businesses and that balance the difference between profit and purpose. Talking about caring for the planet and people, let's have a quick look at our Explore Foundation. The foundation is how we give back to that little to the destinations we visit. It's registered charity run by a board of independent trustees. And when you travel on an Explore tour, we automatically donate on your behalf. The money raised supports grassroots initiatives like that empower people, create opportunities, and support nature. Let me share with you an example of the wonderful projects we're able to support. In Tanzania, as populations expand, people are living increasingly rural areas and close to key wildlife corridors. This can cause issues as elephants are very tempted by the local grown crops by the communities. The crops themselves are like sweets for elephant, extremely tempting. So it's a real problem for people already suffering from food insecurity. Luckily, nature provides an ideal solution. Because elephants are scared of bees, I know, mad. So as the result of this, wire fencing with beehives are installed. And if the elephant brushes against the wire, the bees buzz and the elephants instinctively move away. Not only does it keep the crops safe themselves, but the elephants can still move freely along the wildlife corridors. And there's an extra bonus. The beehives create honey, which is harvested by the local women's collective and sold to tourist lodges. A real win-win for everyone. The Explore Foundation so far has funded 1 kilometre of fencing. That's 50 beehives as well. This handy QR code on the screen will take you to the Foundation's website. So if you want to see more about this incredible project and help us fundraise to double our impact and raise enough to install another kilometre. Now, let's move on to the real reason why you're joining us today. I'm absolutely thrilled to be joined by Anthony and Phoebe today. And I can't wait to hear about their unforgettable experiences they've had on these tours. So with no further ado, I'll hand over to Anthony.
Fantastic. Thank you, Harriet, for that introduction. Look, it's great to have so many of you join us today. For those of you who are joining from the UK, no doubt you're looking out of your window like we are here in Farnborough, and it's cold and it's dark, and so what we're hoping to do today is to spread a bit of warmth and a bit of sunshine and to give you some inspiration on travel to this wonderful, captivating part of the world. And I've been lucky enough to have traveled to 2 of the destinations, which I'll be talking about this evening, Côte d'Ivoire, otherwise known as Ivory Coast, and Senegal. But before I start talking about these 2 very special destinations, I'm just going to give you an overview of all the countries that we feature in West Africa. And we go to 6 places in total. So our special guest speaker tonight, Phoebe, will be talking about Benin and Togo. Those are 2 countries which work really well together and are offered as a tour covering both countries. I'm going to talk about the Ivory Coast shortly, which is another destinations in the Gulf of Guinea. We also go to Senegal and the Gambia on the Atlantic coast. And again, I'll be touching on that trip again shortly. But the one country which we're not going to talk about today because we don't have time is Ghana. But we do offer a trip to Ghana. It's a new trip for us last year, a 15-day tour. And I'm just going to touch on that before we move on. So its main best time to go there is October through to April. So the winter months, those cold winter months in the northern hemisphere, are ideal time to visit. We start and finish in Accra. We go to the Volta region, which is fantastic for bird life. We also go to Kumasi, which is the capital of the Ashanti Kingdom. We go to Mole National Park right up in the north, which is fantastic for wildlife, probably one of the best wildlife parks in West Africa. Of course, West Africa not particularly known for its big game, but there is great populations of elephant in Mole. We go down the Gold Coast, where there's some fantastic beaches and of course quite a poignant history there, particularly associated with the slave trade. So very interesting place to go to. And we finish in Katcombe National Park as well, which is wonderful bird life down there and well preserved forest. So we're not going to talk about Ghana, but I just wanted to mention that that is a country that we do offer, and we've got dates throughout the winter months. But without further ado, let's now go on to our first destination, which is the Ivory Coast. Fantastic. So hopefully that's given you a bit of a tantalizing taste of what's to come. And most of that footage was actually taken on the Explore trip, which I did last November. So let's go on. So 13-day trip. And it's basically we do a loop of the country. So we start and finish in Abidjan. So the south of the country is the economic heartlands, I guess. Abidjan is a big city of over 6 million people. And the majority of travelers to Côte d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast, will just land in Abidjan and spend time on the beach in Grand Bassam. And I think that is such a massive shame, because actually this country is such a surprise. Tourism is really quite in its infancy here. Very few people go to Côte d'Ivoire, and very, very few people travel and do the circuit that we do. And for me, as you go further north, so it becomes such a rich and amazing experience. So the further north you go, the further remote it goes, and the more surprises come, and they just come thick and fast as we do this circuit around the country. Another thing to mention, it can be pretty humid and hot in the south, but as you go further north, you lose that humidity, so it becomes a lot more comfortable to travel around. So I say that we start in Abidjan. We just got a nice in Abidjan, and then we head north. So if we have a look at the next slide, please. So this is our second full day in the country, and my goodness, it's an action-packed day. So we start off by having a look at the Kente cloth making. We'll actually get a chance to partake in the manufacture of this. It's all done very manually. I was absolutely hopeless at it, I'm afraid, but I'm full of admiration for the guys that weave and this cloth so quick. It's absolutely incredible. We'll look at palm wine production, but I think the highlight for this day is the Goli Masquerade dance, and a very elaborate dance. So the first of 7 dances and ceremonies that we will experience. And this tour is all about the amazing cultural, deeply immersive cultural experiences, which are just so different. Each day is such a different performance. So the first of these is with the Bole people, and they've got these very elaborate masks. So on the top left-hand corner, you can possibly depict there a mask which looks like a crocodile. There's another mask that looks like an antelope. I don't think we can see it in this particular picture. And this tribe, the Bule people, believe that their mask and their ceremonies connects the locals to supernatural powers. So this is the first of the tribal encounters that we experience. Great hotel on this site, probably one of the best hotels, the Monafrique Hotel, which is which we stay here. So moving on to the next day. So this is then day 4, and here we are in a place called Corrigo. So we're heading further north, and we've got 2 days here, and this is one of the most energetic dances that we will experience. So it's called the Panther Dance, and this is performed by the Poro people. So young men go through a period of 7 years of initiations, and they actually spend 3 months in total in the forest. And part of the experience of their initiation is these very elaborate dances. And this is one of the dances. It's called the leopard dance. It's called, sorry, the panther dance. And this is performed for us in a village just outside of Corrigal. And I have to say, the energy of this dance, I mean, it's just quite incredible. The acrobatic moves that they make is absolutely amazing. And these lads are probably only sort of 15, 16 years old. We'll also explore some of the other regions around Corrigal. So it's well known for its iron production. So we'll go out to some of the villages, the really remote villages, and some of the fascinating architecture that we'll see there as well. And I have to say, everywhere we went, we were incredibly warmly welcomed. And if we go on to the next slide, this is one of the places which really also stood out for me, which is again in the north, around Corrigal, and this is the Senfunu village, and it's called the Dance of the Virgin Girls. So again, this is another part of the Poro initiation, and this dance is performed at the end of the first stage of that initiation. And again, we were here. We turned up in this village, and this amazing music, and this very elaborate dances with these fine costumes of depicted with the colours depicting the flag of Côte d'Ivoire, which is basically the Irish flag, the Irish tricolour in reverse. So then moving on to day 6, and here we are. We're now in a place called Ouadine, and this was quite a special day because we spent most of the day with these guys who are from the Manikin people, so the Manikin tribe, which is descendants from Mali. They are hunters. And we headed off into a forest enclave, and we spent a couple of hours with them, just learning about the amazing way in which they cohabit with nature. So they are predominantly they're very much a sort of a tribal culture. They move from place to place, but they get everything they need from the forest. And we were very lucky. I felt very privileged to actually spend this time with them. And we walked up to their sacred place. You could see this picture on the right hand side. This enormous boulder with the most fantastic views right in amongst the forest. And we just spent 30 minutes up here, and they were playing the musical instruments, and we learned about their culture, their traditions, their history, and they were just so friendly, and it was just an absolute privilege to be able to spend this time with them at what is quite a sacred place for them. So moving on to the next slide, and we're starting to head back down south now. So this is just outside the city of Man. And this was again another special day. So I'm sounding sort of quite repetitive, but each day was just something different, and we just didn't quite know what to expect. It just got better and better. So this is a community where when we arrived, we were piped into the village square. I say village square, it was just sort of a patch of earth, really. And about 50 women just appeared from all the houses and started dancing and chanting and singing the most beautiful voices. And this went on for about 20 minutes. And the energy that we got from it and the welcome, I mean, it really felt like we weren't even there. It was just, it had a whole energy around the place. And they did a couple of very elaborate dances. So there's this guy on stilts did this acrobatic dance, which even without stilts would be challenging enough. But the fact that he was doing this on stilts with this fantastic costume, it was incredible. So just to sort of picture the scene here, that we had all these women and kids all around us, beautiful singing, all the instruments playing, and this amazing acrobatic dance that was taking place with the masquerade dance. It really was it was an incredible afternoon, and again, it felt wonderful to be part of this experience. And it's not that they get particularly many tourists here. In fact, in many places that we went to, they don't get a lot of tourist group coming up. So, we didn't feel as though we were intruding. Of course, we pay money. We pay. We have local guides that help facilitate these amazing experiences. But it didn't feel that we were intruding in terms of their their society. Then the final one. So let's just move on to the final dance that we experienced, which is the Zulimas dance. So this was one of the most technical dances. The energy that's required to perform this is almost hypnotic, actually, and the speed in which, I mean, you can see these wonderful costumes, which they actually do a number of costume changes whilst this is performed, what I would say is just, if you can, just go onto our website and have a look at the video of this, because it's quite impressive, the speed and the agility into which these guys dance. It is quite incredible. So that was the 7 cultural experiences that we had, but there are other elements to this trip as well. We finished the tour on day 7. We go to Yamoussoukro, which is the capital of Côte d'Ivoire, and this is a very different feel to the tribal villages that we've had in the last sort of preceding 8 days of the tour. This incredible Basilica of Our Lady Peace, it seats 7,000. It's got an additional scope of 11,000 for standing, but I would say that it has mixed. I mean, it is an incredibly impressive building, and I've got a picture there of the stained glass windows which are inside, which are absolutely spectacular. But one does feel it is slightly out of place, given that actually this population here in Yamoussoukro is really quite modest. But an impressive building nonetheless. And then the trip finishes, if we just have a look at the next slide, in a place called Grand-Bassam, which is in the south. So most people really don't leave Grand-Bassam. That's the only place that they go to. Former French colonial town, beautiful beaches, a lovely property that we use here with a big pool and a big terrace and private beach area as well. Lovely seafood restaurants on here. And it's got a good vibe to it as well. So a nice place to end the trip. So just a few facts before we move on to Senegal and the Gambia. 13 days. So the accommodation actually was surprisingly good. It's good 3-star, ensuite bathrooms, air conditioning, quite modern hotels. I was surprised actually quite how modern a lot of them are. Now there is an exception to that. So there is one day in Boudali, which is in the middle of the trip, which is much more basic, and that particular night did stand out. And then one other place, which is Odia, which is also a little bit more basic as well. But for the most part, the hotels were good. They had air conditioning, they had ensuite bathrooms. Actually, no issues with running water or anything like that. They were surprisingly good, and very good in down in the south as well. The Start Hotel and Grand-Bassam was extremely comfortable. I've talked about the best time to travel. It's October through to March. We have 4 departures each year on this trip, and it is just a magical country. Very few people go here, but it really did surpass my expectations. So hopefully that's given you a little bit of a taste of Côte d'Ivoire. So let's now move on to our next destination, which is Senegal and the Gambia, and we've got a little video to show you. Excellent. Right, so let's get into the details. So I've just come back from Senegal and the Gambia. I was there a few weeks ago, and we've just relaunched the trip. So we've run this tour for about 18 years. Hadn't changed much, so we've made a few alterations. Just looking at the map there, so the changes that we've made, we did stay in the middle of Dakar. I have to say, Dakar is probably the of all the highlights of the trip, Dakar's the least. It's quite a busy, industrial, polluted port city. So we now stay just outside in a place called Sali, which was much nicer. It's on the beach and is a great hotel for the start and end of the tour. Some of the other changes that we made around St. Louis in the north, we used to have 3 nights there. We've now got 2 nights, and that helps us break the journey. We used to do a very long journey from St. Louis down back into Georgetown. We used to do that in one day, and it was a torturous 11-hour journey with a border crossing. We now break that into two, so we now stop at the Kaolack, which breaks it down into a 4 hour, I think 5 hours there or thereabouts, and then and a shorter drive the next day. So it just works logistically better in that respect. We also now include Banjul, which is the capital of the Gambia. We didn't used to go there, but we now include that a night there as well. Now, one thing I didn't mention about Ivory Coast was wildlife, and that's because there really wasn't that much wildlife. But when it comes to Senegal and the Gambia, particularly for the birding opportunities, there's much more wildlife to be seen here. But it's much more than wildlife. It's culturally it's a fascinating country, and it's a very very beautiful country as well. And the highlight for me, actually, I really enjoyed my time in the Gambia. Senegal was interesting, but the Gambia was really special, and just the people are just so super friendly, and you notice it as literally as soon as you cross the border, you get big smile from the customs guys, welcome to Gambia, and that sort of carried on through our whole time there. It's just one of the most friendly countries I think I've ever been to. So let's go into the detail, and we're just going to do a whirlwind tour here because I am running slightly over. I do have a habit of talking a bit too much. So first picture here is in Sali, the beach, our hotel, joining hotel, just a little bit away from the beach, just tucked away, but it's a nice place to start. And then on day 2, we're heading to Gorée Island. So you can see a picture of Gorée Island. So that we head into Dakar, and we get a ferry over to Gorée Island, which is a beautiful, tranquil island. No cars there. A nice place to start the trip. In the evening, we can go through a walk through all the network of little streets. It's got a very rich history. It is a slightly dark history. It was the center of the slave trade. So we will learn about that, and we will go to a slave house, which was a very, very moving and fascinating experience, and one which I think we were all pretty moved by. So Gorée on day 2, and then we move on if we to go up to St. Louis. St. Louis is right in the north of the country, and it's right on the border of Mauritania, and it's known for its fantastic birding. So we go to 2 bird sanctuaries, Langue de Barbarie National Park and Djibouti Bird Reserve as well. So fantastic for birding. I think the highlight is the pelicans on the top right hand corner. Now, I have to say, our guide Hassan, we'll show you a picture of Hassan shortly. He is just has encyclopedic knowledge on the bird species. His enthusiasm is just so infectious. And we were there just at the start of the breeding season. So there were around 10,000 pelicans who is literally just arriving. But by the time we get to the middle of December, that population was probably nearer 20,000, and it really was a sight to behold. There's this huge colony of pelicans, all nesting on this island, which was a magical sight. But we can also see there, we can see egret, we can see great cormorant as well, lots of hornbills, fish eagles, flamingos. The bird life is a definite highlight on this trip, and you will see a very rich variety of endemic species and also migratory birds as well. St. Louis itself is a beautiful, very laid-back town. It's on a river estuary, and we've got a couple of nights here and it's got some lively markets which were interesting to go and see. The highlight, without a doubt, was were the two national parks that we went to. But we did a nice Calèche ride around St. Louis, and it's an interesting place to spend some time as well. So moving on, after St. Louis, we're heading inland, and this is where we've broken the journey up here. So this is the Holy Mosque of Touba, and we will do a tour of Touba. I have to say, the actual mosque itself is absolutely spectacular. The town that it's in is slightly less spectacular, but interesting nonetheless. And we'll have a guided tour of one of the holiest mosques in West Africa, one of the biggest mosques as well. So moving on, then we're heading then the next. So we've got a night in Calac, which is a great place to spend. Right, hotel, lovely hotel, right on the river. And then the next day we head back into the Gambia. And our first stop here is Wasu Stones. And this is our guide Asan, who's just very hot here. God, I remember it's absolutely sweltering here, but fascinating. These are stones which date back to between 500 and 700 AD. So they've been there a very long time. A very spiritual connection. We'll hear about the history of the Wasu stones before we then head to our night stop, which is a place called Janjanbureh, which is otherwise known as Georgetown. Now, this was for me, the highlight of the trip. So we have a night in a jungle, in a hut in amongst the forest, and then we are overnight in this very basic, but I have to say it was just a wonderful experience. So this is our accommodation for the night. It's a converted nutmeg barge, but it was just so peaceful being here. It really was. So downstairs, they have an area where we eat. There's loos downstairs as well. There's a bathroom. Obviously, all the kitchens downstairs as well. And chairs all around, and then upstairs, sort of kind of left fairly empty. So chairs in the day, and then mattresses where we sleep on. But it was just so beautiful heading down the river. And if you go on to the next slide, this is the sort of scenery that we're passing, and hardly anyone on the river. Again, most people to the Gambia just stay on the coast. Very few people venture inland, and I think Explore is one of the only operators. I think it's actually the only operator I'm aware of that offers this overnight experience sailing down the Gambia River. There's no cruise boats or anything that do this. Lots of wildlife, so much bird life everywhere, and you're just sailing down. I mean, it's difficult to believe that a few days ago I was here, but it really was a wonderful experience. Then we overnight in Banjul, which is the capital of the Gambia. A nice beach hotel, bit of civilization, having had quite a basic night. We also stay, actually, I should say, one night in a jungle lodge before we get there, and then we head back into Senegal, and we're in the delta here. So this is the Salone Delta, probably one of the best hotels on the trip, with the most spectacular view of the delta. And what I like about this is we actually go from hotel to hotel, not by bus, but by boat. And we actually travel through the network of canals, and we go from hotel to hotel by boat. And again, fantastic bird life and wonderful welcome in the villages as well. It's similar to Côte d'Ivoire. We don't have the masquerade dances, but the communities that we visit were incredibly welcoming along the way. So we've got 2 nights in the Delta, and just the final slide here. I just want to pay tribute to our wonderful guides, and I know that I've seen on the comments there's a couple of people heading to Senegal. The guy on the left is Hassan. He's an absolute legend. I've been on lots of Explore trips. He's probably one of the best tour leaders I have ever had. He was absolutely a lovely guy, so enthusiastic, so knowledgeable, everything you'd want from an Explore leader. And Kiba, who's recently joined our team as well, he's leading some of our departures, getting great feedback from him as well. So look, that's a whirlwind tour. Sorry, I can't spend longer, but I need to pass on to our next speaker. But before I do, just a quick wrap up of Senegal and the Gambia. So it's a 13-day trip. Like other destinations, but when we talked about Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana, October to May on this, so that over the winter months. Can be quite humid in October, and you can get a little bit of rain. November, December, January, February, March, great months to travel, particularly sort of December and January for the migratory birds nesting and the pelicans. That sort of peak season there. Accommodation, I mean, there's only one. Well, the boat is basic, but I think pretty much everybody on my trip said it was a highlight. And the Jungle Lodge the night before, again, we were kind of expecting it. Yes, it was basic, but you're surrounded by nature, monkeys playing outside. It was a magical place. So anyway, that's a snapshot. So without further ado, I'm going to pass on to our guest speaker. Delighted to welcome Phoebe to talk about Benin and Togo.
Okay, everyone. Thank you very much for joining me. And yeah, as you've heard from Anthony, West Africa is such an incredible place. And I've certainly now added Senegal and the Gambia to my ever-growing list of places that I want to visit. So I'm going to be sort of talking about Benin and Togo, as you've heard. And one of the things I really wanted to touch on is this idea, because the trip is all about voodoo. It's got a very strong voodoo theme to it and challenging perceptions of voodoo and what that means. And this starting slide I chose is one of the Zangbito, which is one of the very famous West African voodoo dances you saw on the video that we've just looked at there. And these are actually known, their role as a spirit is the night watchman of these communities, and they were there to kind of keep the peace, keep everyone from getting into any mischief. And they are apparently moved by the spirits. That's what makes them move around. There's no one inside. They absolutely guarantee there's no one inside. And when the dance is finished, they like to flip over and prove that there is no one inside, but there's often a treat left behind that you have to guess what it's going to be, and all the community come together and really do enjoy this. And if you Google West Africa dances voodoo, you'll probably see a Zangbito dance come up there. It's very, very famous. So this trip that I did was back in March, and it's probably been one of my top highlights of the year. It was such a unique experience to do, and I absolutely loved going and exploring somewhere that really did feel so off the tourist track. Whenever I tell people, both pre-going and since I've come back, where I went, there was always two questions, and they were, why did you go and where on earth is it? So I thought to be able to answer those two within my presentation, given that I've seen some of your notes and some of you have already signed up, some of you have kind of thinking about going there, you've done other parts of Africa and thinking about it, I thought this would be a good chance to kind of share my thoughts on this. So I thought the first thing to do is to say who I am. I've seen that some of you have been following my career since Wanderlust, so thank you very much. But yes, I'm a travel writer, I'm a photographer and broadcaster. I'm a creator and host of the Wonder Woman podcast, which is what I recorded when I went to Benin and Togo. And I'm author of 11 books. The most recent one was called Wayfarer, which was all about me as a non-religious person walking ancient pilgrim paths here in Britain. And like I said, I'm not religious, but I am captivated by religions around the world and see how they take different forms but have a lot of things in common depending on where you go, and they all kind of feed into each other. And I love, a huge passion of mine is off the beaten track travel and unexpected places, going to places where people go, oh, where is that? So that's what I like to do. And the kind of reason that took me to Benin and Togo was, it started 10 years ago in 2015, where I was sent on assignment to Haiti. This is a picture of Port-au-Prince, the capital. Unfortunately, it's not a place we can really travel to safely now. But when I went back in 2015, I remember being absolutely blown away, not only to learn about the slave history and how it was the one successful slave revolt that ever happened, but also that how voodoo was such an important part of the culture over there, and that all I knew about voodoo before I went to Haiti was the James Bond film Live and Let Die. That's all I really knew, and I thought it was black magic and spells and, you know, kind of the darker side of magic. But that's all been kind of fabricated and put out there because of colonization, because of Hollywood. It's all been made to be this scary thing, whereas actually it's a real part of the culture. And of course, a lot of the enslaved people that came to Haiti were from West Africa, and they had to hide their voodoo beliefs, which are very closely linked to nature, within Catholic deities. So they would pretend to be worshipping a saint, whereas actually they were worshipping one of the gods of voodoo. And the thing I remember the most about going to a voodoo ceremony in Haiti was the drums, the sound of the drums, and how it really resonated in your chest and got you really involved and wanting to just move. And the next place I went to the year after that in 2016 was New Orleans, which of course is the other very famous place for voodoo. They have a slightly different type of voodoo there, which is kind of, again, it's like a Catholic voodoo. And the same thing, a lot of the people who went to New Orleans who brought voodoo with them were enslaved people from West Africa, from Benin and Togo, and also from Haiti. Once the revolt happened in 1791, a lot of them decided to move to New Orleans. And so for me, the idea of going to West Africa was kind of like being able to explore more the origins of that voodoo that I'd witnessed in these other two places, and actually see an Africa beyond what a lot of us think of Africa as being, which is mainly wildlife. So that kind of answers the why I was really desperate to go there. But for the where, you've already seen some maps that Anthony's been kind enough to show us. So there it is, very rudimentary map from Google to show you that it's Togo and Benin, sandwiched between Ghana and Nigeria. And the actual route just to give you actually an example of the two countries. So Togo is about the same size of Croatia. Or if you're in the US, it's about the same size as West Virginia, the state there. And the first language in both is French. In Togo, it's also Ewa and Kabia, which are two indigenous languages, but there's many, many others spoken. And then in Benin, you're looking at a country that's a bit smaller than England, also French, like I said, indigenous languages of Fon, Yoruba, and Bariba. And again, loads more indigenous languages spoken there as well. And the route that we follow on this explore trip is like a big clockwise loop, starting in Lomé, which you can get to easily via Paris, and fly in. And I'd say that it's really interesting that both these countries are combined, because there's a real synergy between them, but there's also some marked differences. And not only that, but as you'll notice, the tour starts in Lomé. So the two sort of, and I use the term loosely, tourist areas, sort of Lomé, Grand Popo, and the places on the coast. And they're places that are trying to be developed by the government as a bit of a tourist place. But we go on this trip really far north, and the further north you go, the more rural, the more kind of spread out, the more real sort of it feels. And these two pictures kind of illustrate that. So the one on the left is the north, so that's as far north as you go, and the other one's in the south in Lomé, which is the capital. And obviously there's all the things you'd expect to have there. There's the monuments, there's the artisans, there's the Gothic cathedral. So I'm gonna sort of talk about both places, but one subtle difference between the two of them I'd like to kind of point out is the way that voodoo is presented. So these two pictures, the one on the left is a market in Togo, and what you'll find in Togo is that voodoo is still, it's very much practiced, it's very much part of the culture, but it's done in a little bit more subtle way. It's not so in your face. Whereas the picture on the right is a cathedral, or like a temple for voodoo in Benin. And as you can see, it's very loud and proud, we are Voodoo and we are really proud of this. So I'm going to take you on a whistle-top tour, which is all we can fit in tonight, and kind of talk you through the different experience I had and what things I found about Voodoo. So like I said, Lomé in Togo, really well known for, you know, that monument that I just showed you, really well known for the artisan market, but it's also got a fetish market. So this, I don't know how well you can see the detail on this. There's just tons of animal heads here, dried animal heads, which are all used in different ceremonies for Voodoo for various things. It's like going to the doctors and saying, I have this problem to solve, I have this issue I want to talk through, and then you go and see someone like the guy on the right who is a Voodoo priest, and he basically gets you to say certain words, he gives you certain charms, you make a donation, and I myself decided to ask for a blessed trip, and I think you'll see by the end I definitely had one. I will say that one of the other guests who came, he bought one for protection for him and his family, and as soon as he got back on the bus, he banged his head on the ceiling. So we did laugh and say perhaps his one hadn't worked so well. Maybe he hadn't quite believed it as much as he should have done. So from there, we headed north. So like I said, we're going on this clockwise loop, and we were going up to a place called Palime, which has got a K at the front of it that you don't pronounce. And we met with a naturalist. We did a walk in the woods, which was beautiful. We saw amazing butterflies and some incredible views. But I wanted to just pull out here what he showed us, which was the naturalist that you see in pictured there wanted to show us about how women in particular, and some men, would get ready for ceremonies, Voodoo ceremonies, celebrations, and this was all using nature. So you can see on the first picture, that's an earring that, because of the sap on the flower, sticks to your ear like an earring. The lady's hand in the middle, she's been given false nails, which were flower petals, which they use. And then the picture on the end, quite a few of us got these, which were tattoos, temporary tattoos, which they used the sap from one of the trees to draw a picture that was invisible, and then they'd get some charcoal and rub it on. And we all had tattoos that lasted about 3 or 4 days, which was very, very cool. So I thought it was a nice touch to show how nature is really embedded within kind of these Voodoo traditions and beliefs. You saw a little bit of this on the video. So this is Sekoto, a bit further north again. This is something called the fire dance. Now, the people in this community are descended from a great hunter, and they believe he was granted by a spirit in the woods the power to repel fire. So there's certain members of the community who are able to swallow fire, sit on fire. This guy who seems to appear in everyone's pictures can eat the embers from a fire and doesn't seem to be hurt by it at all. But again, the thing I remember about this was the drums. The community all came out. I know some of you have been asking, are these things just put on for tourists? And there is an element with the timing of asking them, will they do it that day? But from everything I saw and the questions I asked and spoke to, it was very much the community absolutely loved it and were getting involved. And they started before we arrived and they carried on after we left. Everyone was very much invested in these different ceremonies that we saw. We went further north again, and we met this man who is a tribal chief, if you will, or a king, as some people are calling him. This is in his palace, and we were all allowed to ask him questions that we had about his communities. This is in a place called Bassar. And the thing that everyone seemed to want to fixate on was how many wives he had, because they're allowed to have multiple wives. He said he could only cope with 2. There were lots of questions about that, how he was elected. But if you really dig deep, and this again highlights how Voodoo is kind of practiced within Togo compared to Benin, he did say that a lot of the things they consult to know how to help problems, to know how to deal with situations that arise, to know how to elect people, they do consult the Voodoo shrines, which are actually hidden away in the back. And I just wanted to point that out because that's a major difference with this area compared to when we move into Benin. And this is one of the villages. So afterwards we went on a local village tour with the residents, met some of the lovely families who were there, and did notice the thing on the left, which is a lever, which is like a shrine to one of the Voodoo gods, and they're to protect the village, and they do sacrifices to them to offer protection. If something's happening, they use them. And again, it's not done in a very fancy way. It's just, you'll just notice them everywhere. It's just, like I said, it's definitely a way of life rather than anything for tourists or anything for show. from that place, you know, we went to the market. These are these women who were making ceramic pots for the market. And at first you just think, oh, they're just pots. They're just maybe nice souvenirs. But then when you look a little bit closer, you'll see some of the pots have spikes on them, and they're used for carrying certain things to do with voodoo practices. You notice there's bales of straw, which are actually used for a voodoo ritual to cleanse yourself in the river if you feel like you're being haunted by some kind of spirit and you want to get them off your back. So you learn the subtleties of how voodoo actually really has permeated into every part of life in Togo. And then the final stop in the northern part is a place called, well, you meet the Tamburma people, and they live in these clay castle-like houses. It's right near the border with Burkina Faso. And these people have fled basically historically from slavery, and they kind of protected themselves by keeping the animals downstairs. They also have what look like voodoo shrines downstairs, and they all sleep upstairs on the roof so they can keep a lookout, rebuild the houses every year. But they don't actually call their form of voodoo voodoo, they call it a different name, and it's recognized more of an animist, as voodoo is, religion, which is all to do with nature. And you know, in voodoo and in what they believe as well, the shrines, the fetishes, which are the objects that you give to the gods, they are all connected with terrain and with animals, and they mean different things. So the strength and the courage that you might need, you get from a certain animal, you get from a certain terrain, and you feed these shrines, these sacrifices. That's what it all comes down to. And you don't only feed them, but they do, when they kill a chicken, for instance, they then cook and eat the chicken too. It's not just a needless sacrifice, which I felt was something, as a vegetarian, it was something that was quite important to note, that they have a double use, really, these animals, for them. So next up, after this, we have to cross the border because time's moving on and we've got to go across. The phrase time moving on, when we're talking about border crossings in Africa, I'm sure some of you are very well traveled and realize that this does take a while. I would definitely advise you to take a good book when you go, because it does take a while, and take some snacks as well, which were very kindly provided for us. But once you cross over the border, you do start to notice a difference in how voodoo is presented almost immediately. So the first village we went to was a place called Teneka, and the people here are from Ghana, Burkina, and Togo. They practice scarification, where they scar their faces so they can tell which tribe they're from, to encourage intermarriage, so that to keep the gene pool healthy. And they have this sacred baobab tree, which is wrapped in a white cloth, which reminded me very much of Buddhism, or something I've seen in Nepal. And you were allowed to go and talk to the tree and ask the tree for something, but you had to go barefoot. So again, it's a very natural, kind of similar to pagan religion that we had in the UK prior to Christianity. And they have these fetish priests here that you saw one on the video with long pipes. They wear a goatskin loincloth, and that's all. And you go to them if you've got certain problems or health issues, and they smoke tobacco in these huge long pipes to commune with the spirit. But the good thing about in Benin is that if you want to practice some voodoo, most of the time within the voodoo religion, like many religions, you need a priest to do it for you, and you have to pay them. But in Benin, no priest, no problem, because you can go to one of the open shrines in the country, which is kind of like a do-it-yourself voodoo. And so we stopped on the way, so as we're starting to make our way south, to the largest one, I think it is, in Benin, which is called Dankole. And as soon as you arrive, it's literally by the road, you see people arrive all the time, you get this mass of young lads like this one who run to try and help you do the ceremony. They don't expect you to know what to do. If you need to do a sacrifice, they'll do it for you. But actually, the first point that you do is not a sacrifice. It's not, this is the thing with voodoo, it's not a sacrifice. You go and make a promise, you go and make a request first. And this is done, like, as we can see in this picture, which is where they douse the shrine with palm oil, and then they drink something that's called Kill Me Quick, which is a type of homemade alcohol, and then they spit it over the shrine. And there's a male shrine and a female shrine. It's absolutely incredible to see. It's so different from any other place, the way it's done, and it's very inclusive, I would say. They do definitely believe that voodoo is not for them, but it's for the world. to enjoy. So so that's in Dankoli Shrine. I have to say it's probably the one episode of the podcast where I had to say no chickens were harmed during the making of the podcast, because we did not see any sacrifices. Some of you would be pleased to know. But now I've got to run through quickly the journey south, because there is so much to say. So we did see a lot of the dances, which I want to highlight. I don't want to give them too much away because I know some of you will want to go. So we went to places Dassa, Cove, Abomi, and saw different dances. These guys here are for the Agungun, and the rule is you never touch the costume. And these guys get up and suddenly start dancing and spinning around. And there was, funny enough, when we came to see this one, there was a funeral happening. And of course, it's a West African funeral, very bright, very jolly. Everyone's very, very joyous to celebrate the life rather than mourn the death. And they were getting involved and it was like being kids running away from these. And they have guides who kind of keep them back from you to keep them in their spirit realm, these spirit whisperers. And it's considered a great honor to wear one of these costumes. Each one represents a deceased ancestor. So it's like the living dead. This one is the Gelede dance, where the dancers they're all men, but they dress as women because they have rightly realized that women are the most powerful and magical creatures. And so the women don't bother dancing, they don't need to, but the men do, dressed as women. But they also, through their dances, give out advice, such as this one is about the perils of teenage pregnancy, which, you know, seems quite off-putting if you ended up with a belly like that, I'm pretty sure. And of course, the Zangbito dance, which, like I said, the night watchman, they're a bit like the spinning dervish in Turkey. And at the end of the dance, they open it up to show you what's underneath. They're like, there's no one who does it. It's just the spirits that move these things. One of the places that you will visit on the trip, if you go, is Ouidah, which is probably one of the most famous places in Benin, which is the place where the annual voodoo festival is held. I didn't go at the time of the festival, and I found the place it did feel a bit more markedly tourist. After you've been to the north, which feels so sort of for local people that you're just getting to be immersed in, this felt a bit more geared up for tourists because they used the festival. This is the Python Temple. And so with these voodoo things, you definitely do get amazing pictures, incredible, memorable experiences. But I just wanted to take a minute before I finish to highlight some of the things that were the unexpected, true highlights of this trip. And the first one was the people, because I know that Anthony's touched on this as well, but I found everyone I met was so willing to share, was so willing to chat with my very bad GCSE French. So don't be afraid to try it. Everyone really appreciates it when you do, because hardly anyone speaks English. And just the welcome that you get when you go to these places. I walked around on my own in the morning in some places, and I never once felt unsafe. The other thing is the children. I am a mum to a 5-year-old, so I probably was a little bit biased here, but they were so delightful. I was letting them use my camera, so showing them how to do it. They were all coming out for the dances. For them, the entertainment was only there because we were there. So they were so pleased. They were just hanging off me, and to everyone, they were just genuinely really, really happy to see us, and it was a real delight to get to know them. Another highlight, which isn't really to do with voodoo, is Gonvier, which is the Venice of Africa. And no electric, very basic. Anthony mentioned his basic one in the last one, and it's the same here. You know, you go out at night to the night market, and there's people waiting for takeaways, but they're in these boats. And in the morning you have breakfast, and I had the best breakfast I think I've ever had in my life from one of these little boats. And I genuinely did not want to leave Gonvier. It was absolutely beautiful place. And then the trance dance. This is one that's not got all the elaborate costumes as the other one, but this is where these women, and it can be men as well, but when I went, it was all women, go into these trances during this ceremony, and they get to act however they want. I mean, personally, I think it's just a little bit of a way to let off steam. But watching them go, like the lady on the left, into the trance and then just start to act out and do these dances, I found it utterly unique. And then one of the most probably sombering but really powerful places was to go to the Gate of No Return. So this, for me, was a bit full circle, because this is a structure that's been built to mark the spot where the enslaved people were basically trafficked out on the ships to the Caribbean, to the Americas. And the gate is two entries. It's the gate of no return, because people coming from the land side would never physically have come back to their home in West Africa. But if you look on this side, which is where I've taken the picture from, which is the sea is there in front, there's one of the dancers of the deceased ancestors. There's one of the Agunguns. And the whole point is that, yes, physically you'll never come back, but your spirit eventually will. And I found that as a full circle moment for doing the loop of the two countries. For me, who's been trying to learn so much about voodoo over the years, it was a bit of a full circle moment to see how important the voodoo is as a way of life, and was as a way of life, and still is, and is such a huge part of the cultural identity of people in West Africa. They don't just see it as performative or something you go to church. Voodoo is everything within the life, and I really think it deserves to be acknowledged as something way beyond this kind of Hollywood cliche. And so I hope if you go, you'll have that same realization when you get to this point. And as Anthony did, I just also wanted to say a massive thanks to the wonderful Explore guides. They really are some of the best, and they make the trip what it was. This is Oscar, Edmund, Yao, and Stephen, and without them, it wouldn't have been the trip that it was. So I hope you've enjoyed that very, very quick, probably overrunning, but I'm blaming Anthony, trip around Benin and Togo, and you're inspired to go. And if you want to hear more, do check me out, and do check out the podcast episode, which is wherever you get your podcast. And also, I believe it's on the Explore page on the Benin and Togo trip. Thank you very much. I believe Anthony's coming back on to talk you through the nitty-gritty.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Phoebe. That was absolutely wonderful to hear you share your experience. So thank you for that. So lots of great questions, and please do keep those questions coming in. We're poised to answer them as they come in. So keep those coming. Yeah. So just a quick summary of our Benin and Togo trip. So 14-day trip. We do offer this trip all year. What I would say is that the best time to travel is probably going to be similar to Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, is going to be October through to March, April time. I would also mention we do a dedicated Voodoo festival departure, and that is on the 8th of January each year. So there's two departures, one at the end of December, one I think goes 5th or 6th of January, and they do book up very, very quickly. We will be publishing the 2027 dates within the next 6 weeks. So if you are looking at doing the Voodoo Festival date, please do keep an eye on the website and book that fairly quickly, because that does tend to book out. But yeah, the 12 nights comfortable accommodation, 1 night on simple accommodation on the lake, and all the details on the website there. So do take a look. But thank you, Phoebe, for that wonderful overview, which I thought did a far better job than I could have done in terms of painting a picture there. So we're just going to finish up by just talking some of the other trips that we do in Africa. So if we can just move on to the next slide, please. So I'm just going to mention 3 tours that we offer. So new this year is a combination tour of Zimbabwe and Botswana. Botswana, probably our biggest wildlife destination. Absolutely love Botswana. And this trip here combines 2 wonderful countries, Harangi and Mabobo National Park, as well as also Moremi, Savuti, and Chobe. So 5 fantastic parks there. So that is a great destination. 2 other trips there, which have just back on the screen. Uganda and Rwanda tour to see the mountain gorillas in Bwindi. That's a hugely popular tour, and that is date coming up for 2027 being launched shortly. And a new upgraded trip in South Africa, which combines a garden route with the Kruger, using comfortable 4-star hotels and lodges. That trip just came out a few weeks ago. Definitely well worth a look. So I'm going to pass you back to Harriet now, who's just got a few words.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Anthony. It was incredible to hear from you and Phoebe just about, those particular experiences you had, how inspirational, quite honestly. So as Anthony said, keep those questions coming in. If we have got you feeling inspired and you're ready to start planning your next adventure, we'd love to hear from you. So whether you want to chat with us at our friendly team or indeed connect through the trusted travel agent, we're here to help answer your questions and get you one step closer to your next unforgettable trip. Still to come, we've had a great flow of questions coming in, and throughout the presentation, our team, as well as Anthony, has been hard at work answering them. Now, we've saved a few of the most common questions to answer live, and after this, we'll be going through and doing that exciting prize draw as well. But right now, I'd like to welcome back Phoebe and Anthony to answer some of those questions you've been asking us. Thank you. Hello, guys. Hello. Thank you for joining again. So I'm going to go to you first, Phoebe, specifically. What is the food like in Benin and Togo? And how did you get on as a vegetarian?
I mean, that's definitely the question I asked Anthony before I went. Will I survive as a vegetarian? I think people on the whole in the group were pleasantly surprised. It was very varied, it was very filling, it was very tasty. As a vegetarian, it's probably less, I mean, I certainly didn't starve, there was plenty of food, probably just less of the variety. So a lot of rice, for me personally, a lot of plantain, because it's kind of one of my favorite foods. But yeah, plantain, rice, that's what I remember the most out of it. And obviously you're being taken to different places by the guides where they could say, oh, you're okay to have the salads here because we know that they wash this in treated water. And yeah, and there were some restaurants which felt almost very Western, that you could pretty much get whatever you wanted. Breakfast, you'd always have an omelette, which set you up very well for the day, and always have good coffee and tea. And then in some places there'd be pizza. And
Nice.
but I tried to avoid anything Western. I tried to just go local, and I definitely am missing the plantain.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I don't blame you. It's nice to try and be as traditional as you can in places, even if it's not what you'd normally eat, but plantain is always a good choice. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Just to chip in as well, just
Yeah,
a couple of things. 2 points. First of all, they do this most amazing chicken in a peanut sauce. I don't know if your group had that. I found this in Ivory Coast, actually in Senegal as well. So it's like almost like a soup, but I'm probably not painting a great picture here, Phoebe, but it is absolutely delicious.
People had a lot of chicken and they loved it, and they had fish as well, which they raved about.
And look, great fish, particularly in the south. One thing I would say though is that sometimes the waits in the restaurants can be quite long. So what we do is we tend to pre-order, so you get a menu in advance. You can select on the bus I don't know whether you experience this, and then by the time you get to the restaurant, it's all freshly prepared, and it means that we're not having to wait too long. But the service times can take a bit of a while, so that's what we do to get around that.
Perfect. Thank you, Anthony. Anthony, this next question is going to be for you because it's regarding Senegal as well. So is it advisable to visit Senegal during Ramadan? And would we miss out on anything by going at that time?
Yeah, so a good question. Unlike countries in North Africa and the Middle East, although it is 90% Muslim, Ramadan is observed, but it doesn't have an impact on the itinerary. I asked this question directly to Hassan, who's a tour leader, and he said no, it really doesn't impact the itinerary at all. And if you're traveling at the end of Ramadan and at Eid, it can be actually really exciting. Lots of celebrations, lots of feasting, can be a good time of year. And of course, the evenings come alive at night after it gets dark as well. So no, I would say absolutely fine to travel over Ramadan.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And then I'm not too sure which one of you would like to pick this up, Anthony, maybe you, or indeed Phoebe as well. So some people like me, it's actually would be my first time traveling to Africa. So which country do you think is best to visit first as a beginner?
Well, so first of all, the 2 countries which are English speaking are the Gambia and Ghana. Benin, Togo, Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire is French speaking, although I found most people you could get by in English. So that might be a factor. I think Ghana's probably a bit more westernized as well, so a bit easier to travel around. Having said that, I thought that in terms of infrastructure, Ivory Coast, amazing roads. I don't know what the roads were like in Benin and Togo. Were they infrastructure
Yeah,
good?
I was really pleasantly surprised
Yeah.
actually. They were, obviously they're not like our roads, but there
Mm.
weren't anywhere, you were feeling really, really sick because they were too bumpy. And I have to say, I think, yes, of course, people think first time Africa, English speaking do that, but at least on the explore trips, you have English speaking guides who then hire local guides and they translate for you. So I think you if you're intrigued by something as I was with voodoo, even if it's the first time, like I don't think it should put you off going somewhere like Benin and Togo. If that's your first foray into it, why not?
I would concur. I have to say, the feedback that we get on that trip is always absolutely fantastic. They're all great destinations. I don't think you can go far wrong. Go and see them all. But if you're the first time, but yeah, I don't know. Benin and Togo probably, yeah.
I love the answer. Go see them all. Absolutely. They are certainly on my list, certainly after tonight anyway. And then a question for you, Phoebe, as well for Togo. The ceremonial dances, I know you did sort of talk about them and that they weren't so put on during your speech and when you were talking, but how do we avoid sort of, I suppose, over tourism? Did it feel over tourism, like more tourists that were there or anything?
No, there were no other tourists there. It was just the Explore group were the only tourists. It was really, like I said, they were very much community events. It's as it was explained to me, and obviously as I went as a journalist as well as a punter, I got to ask more probing questions about this, and so I would often speak to like the village elders or the heads of the organizers, and they said, look, we are doing this all the time. Like I said, it's a way of life. These ceremonies are a way of life. They're a community event. The only thing that us going there does is kind of maybe dictate the day they do it. They might go, oh, which day should we do it this week? And we'll go, can you do it on this day? But like even the order we saw the dances change from the itinerary, because it's very much the guides are calling ahead and asking, and they're going, oh, the community are going to do a Galede dance on this day, so can you switch up and do it on that day? So to me that then felt it wasn't one of these kind of, because I totally get it, and I'm really not up for these things that are very much, this is a presentation for tourists, but it didn't feel like that at all. Like I said, every single one of them, when we arrived, things had already started. People were coming out of houses, kids were coming, there was such excitement. And when we left, they carried on. The one with the women doing the trance dance, I mean, that, from what I heard, because I asked Oscar after it, that went on for hours into the late evening after we left. Like, we were there and it was kind of like, you're there, but this isn't for you, this is for us, but you're allowed to come and be part of it for a while.
Absolutely. No, it's brilliant to hear. And I think that's a good thing also just to sort of talk about as well. So thank you so much. Thank you both for joining us. Now, as we mentioned, we've run over a little bit because of the amazing information that both of you have given us. So thank you so much for that. So we'll move on from the Q&A this evening. Next up is our prize draw. One lucky winner will win a pair of binoculars to take on their next adventure. We've selected one of you at random. The winner is Robin Goodman. Congratulations, Robin. We'll be in touch with you via email to get your prize sorted a little bit later on. Thank you so much for joining us today and getting involved with the Q&A and the chat. It's been wonderful seeing everyone talk and really reach out to us and interact. It's been a pleasure to see all the conversations and to have you on this journey with us. And thank you so much again to Phoebe and Anthony for your knowledge and your experiences. Keep an eye on your inbox over the next few days for an email with the event recording and a quick feedback survey. We love to hear from you and how we can improve or what you've loved about these sessions. So I hope you've enjoyed the journey tonight, and until next time, goodbye and happy travels.